In my review of Love Live Sunshine, I mentioned that I misplaced my feces over my dress-up darling, and some of you may have assumed that my reasons are, this anime is stupid because it sexualized a woman like everything else does. And that would be a fair guess, knowing me, but this was not the entirety of the problem. Hear me out for a bit, okay? While waiting for Shikamori Isn't Just a Cutie to be made free on Crunchyroll, I came across my dress-up darling, and I'm still up for heartwarming romance. Wakana made Tina dolls, which got him labeled weirdo, so rather than change his hobby and fit in, he kept to himself and just didn't make friends. Good on him for not caving to peer pressure, but not as good as the lead girl Marin, a full-blown otaku with no hesitation of announcing her hobbies from the rooftops, and most people born yesterday or before knows where this plot goes. Marin stumbles on his hobby, they form friendship, they fall in love. So what does Mr. Dollmaker and Miss Anime Viewer bond over? Cosplay. She wants to sew, she can't, he can, and since she reacted well to learning about his hobby, why not make her an outfit or two? She seems nice. My first red flag was Marin's character design. Everything about her appearance just radiated generic popular girl, with the only thing keeping her from being a clip art search result is her aforementioned hobby, merchandise from which being on her person regularly. I latched onto this one at first episode. True, episode 1 did stoop to using a brief flash of Marin's underwear. I would later learn that was a warning shot. On the other hand, she had a brief flash of relatability, a specific sort I haven't seen since Aramo. A conversation in the end of episode 1 and beginning of episode 2 reveals her desire to cosplay is driven by a desire to be just like a game character, likely from a visual novel she has deep-seated feelings for, moving both myself and Wakana at the same time. Wow. Yeah, Wakana and I remained in unison for that reveal. And that one. I was willing to let this slide, though. I have no grounds to say that a relatable character can't come out of a softcore porno. Longtime viewers of mine, as well as people who personally know me, may remember years ago when 2 years of moping over a girl was ended by an anime about a certain murderous, manipulative lesbian pedophile. Yeah, I struggle to explain that one. But that's why I felt kinship, why I wanted to bond with Marin. Okay, between your good humor and strong potential, I got a good feeling about you. What's our next step? Okie dokie, I imagine that can be done off screen. Right, so that can be a pretty quick scene. Joy, I'm going to have a snack. Let me know when she has her clothes back on. Like that makes a difference! Seriously, generic popular girl forces her way into guy she barely knows house and finds cause to strip. Didn't I say in my King's Game review that I should not be able to discern the writer's fetish? I looked up and down from my phone every 30 seconds or so because I knew it was going to end any minute. And after it did, it told one more joke and rolled the credits. And I must have been having a great conversation because only then did a few obvious things hit me. Firstly, it spent more than 80% of episode 2 trying to make me memorize her contours. Let me make myself clear on something. Trashy scene does not make trashy anime, a principle best demonstrated by a certain scientific railgun, one of the most intelligent things I've ever watched, comparable to Death Note and Code Geass. But you know what it did during one of its first episodes? The unhinged lesbian shared the contents of her underwear drawer with all her friends, including a pair she stole from the protagonist. Furthermore, one of my favorite anime, Gochimon wa Sagi Dezuka, had a little more than its fair share of underwear during its first season. So what did my dress-up darling do that was so offensive by comparison? Whether intentionally or unintentionally, that earlier conversation acknowledges a common problem with modern-day anime that it oftentimes gets mistaken for nothing more than a form of softcore pornos. I have an aunt who is under that impression. I'll give you a hint. Her son's favorite anime is High School DxD. My dress-up darling acknowledges this and then proceeds to make itself part of the problem, effectively shooting itself in the foot. True, I could just finish the series and never watch episode 2 again, but like an experienced chess player watching his opponent park his queen in front of his pawn's range of attack for no good reason, so I've come to realize this would not be the most inspired of games. Answer me this at least. Marin's female friends knows what she likes, right? Why did she not ask one of them to take all these measurements instead of traumatizing the boy we know hasn't spoken to a female since he was in elementary school? It is my belief that a romance's job is to make the case to the viewer that lead guy and lead girl belong together. It is highly unlikely or even impossible to find another better suited to the two characters. I'm not asking that I be able to identify that in only the 2 episodes I gave my dress-up darling, but I dare say I have its answer. A mutual respect for one's hobbies, which is enough to provide reasonable foundation for a good friendship to start. Obviously time spent together, and the measuring scene in episode 2 implied early sexual attraction as well. I'm not asking these two not to have a sex drive. Chunibyo Demokoi Gachitai had a similar formula, and it's in my top 10 romances. The difference is I only know the guy was attracted to the girl because of one look inside his mind mid-series, making me smile and say, "Aw, young love." Sakura-san no Pet no Kanojo also started with a very similar scene on episode 1, no doubt also imprinting certain memories in his head that subconsciously influenced the decision to be a part of her life, but I didn't think about it at the time because the joke actually worked on me. The difference is the lead girl wasn't randomly stripping for the first guy to show her a modicum of respect and pretending to be oblivious to the guy's concern for the promise of a cosplay set. Instead, she was mentally disabled and sincerely believed this was a normal scene. She genuinely didn't understand what the guy's problem was. That took from its romance, but I could actually laugh about that. I looked up a review of My Dress Up Darling out of curiosity, and one thing that really stood out to another YouTuber was My Dress Up Darling's accuracy. Apparently, the author did extensive research into both Hina dolls and the cosplay industry to give the most authentic feel. I remember a time I happened to be discussing Full Metal Jacket with my cousin, and I said it made me bitter. His father, my uncle, made sure to remind me of its accuracy, and he being former military, I have no reason to doubt him, but here's the thing, accuracy is a sparkle that belongs to artworks that can stand on its own 2 feet without the aid of the real world, something hard to do when you've made the viewer bitter, or in the case of My Dress Up Darling, shot yourself in one of those feet. Furthermore, if we're going to all the effort to study what the real world gave to My Dress Up Darling, then it is good and proper to see what My Dress Up Darling gave to the real world. Marin took a look at one of Wakana's dolls and stated, and I quote, "She's a hottie," with no provocation from Wakana. That, and of course she got him to observe the lewd games that touched her heart. This, and no doubt later episodes, imparts the impression to the viewer that a relationship where both people are talking extensively about other girls' backsides will somehow remain exclusive. Now, I could make a similar complaint about the harem subgenre in general, but more times than not, that's a silliness the writer would not expect to realistically work. If nothing else, the legions of girls are usually at odds with each other because they instinctively want to be the one and only. Do the math though, Marin will continue to speak about attractive girls and Wakana will be led to do the same. Even if it doesn't lead to actions, would their hearts be exclusive to one another? Do you see the most realistic end for Wakana and Marin? Marin will always speak what's in her heart because she's a true fan even if it's to her detriment. And I feel for her. The next woman bored enough to date me is going to have to hear about Sato Matsuzaka because who can hold back what's in their heart? Even though my feelings towards Sato are admiration, respect, and gratitude, I will consider myself truly fortunate if future girlfriend still feels like my one and only. Sorry if that got a little depressing, that usually happens when I try to involve the real world. So even if the romance aspect is as good as dead, what if My Dress Up Darling pulls something unusual? What if in episodes I did not see, it does something truly special that can't be categorized as comedic or romantic? That review did mention a bit where Marin pushed Wakana too hard and apologized for something. Probably not the measure my foot bit in episode 2 when Wakana was clearly at his limit for embarrassment, but oh well, better to apologize for one thing than for no thing. There is one thing that could make me turn a blind eye to everything I've complained about. I checked one of those 15 things we love about Marin Kitagawa and a everything you need to know about Marin Kitagawa, but I couldn't find it. I wanted to know why. One of Marin's most celebrated features across the internet is her relatability, but without knowing what the game character did for her heart, I feel like the relatability stops part way. Was the answer so unmeaningful that it was barely mentioned for a second? Or was the question not even worth bringing up? This puts Marin one step behind Kirino Kasuka, who for all her faults we can at least call fully explained. Though I knew this would be the outcome, I was surprisingly disappointed. I guess I was hoping to relate more than I thought. If you can ignore the failed romance, you'd probably have a good time with the comedy, but I am unable to look past the foundation that takes the romance out of the romance and the lost potential for a truly relatable character.